I think, Sunanda, for me, it's about the small things that you have shown. The spider, the mushroom, and so many small things, right? Which has a connection with the Arana that you're talking about. So,
So actually, you've kind of hit the nail on the head, because really the concept of the film is to focus on the small and the ordinary, which otherwise does get lost. So even the characters in the film are very ordinary people who have not had won some major recognition, but the kind of work they do is something out of this world. So it is, because in when you talk about the forest, when you talk about conservation, it's always on the large animals, elephants, tigers, and all that. But it's these, creepy crawlies that you call, that are the ones who first get affected when there is some quick change. So our intention was that, to focus on that. There were many large things that were happening in Wayanad, but we consciously chose to focus on that.
how did you basically, connect the dots and connect the dots in so many different ways? And I think the film operates at multiple layers of Wayanad in itself.
When I began working on this film, it was actually, I was inspired by Sainath's articles on the farmers' crisis, agricultural crisis in Wayanad, and he had written a very evocative piece on the bus to Kutta. It's on this lady who travels from Wayanad to Kutta in Karnataka to work on the ginger plantation. It was a very visual piece, and I was completely taken up by it, and I decided to travel to Wayanad, and I spent some time researching. But I realized, so I actually initially began with the idea that I'd make a film on the Adivasis who work in the ginger plantations. Over the time, as I spent more time, I realized that I was actually going to be making a film that would somehow show them as an exploited and suppressed lot, which often mainstream media does, and I was wary of that kind of representation. So I started going back to the drawing board and really exploring what is it that I wanted to make in Wayanad. So, most of my travels in Wayanad were by bus. So often when you sit in the bus, you start from the valley, like Kamana Rametan's place. So you start from these rice fields, and then you move up over these, you pass these plantations, rubber, ginger, pepper, and then you cross a forest, and then you come into a town, So I was struck by the diversity of the landscapes that coexisted, and I thought, why not make a film on that? And I chose my 3 characters from those 3 diverse landscapes. But right from the beginning, I had heard of the story of Achan and Itti. And I felt that there was something very special in that story, because it kind of represented, it was a way that the landscape was understood then, because it was so it's a journey, it's an ancient creation myth, but what is interesting about it is the journey, and it's a very kind of practical thing, they talk about the places they went through and what they saw, and I felt it gave a sense of history and a historical perspective to how things were viewed then and how things are viewed now. So that myth, which was one of the most difficult things to incorporate in the film while filming and while editing, but it's something that gave it, that extra texture and understanding. So, we didn't try hard to connect the dots. What we did is we had a kind of a structure. So we decided to follow paddy cultivation. So we, began with the sowing. So you began with, moist images of moist earth, wetness, planting the seeds, growing the mushrooms, nurture, care. And then we moved on to, images of harvest and decay, destruction, farmer suicide. So somewhere we followed the cycle of life and death, which is also what the Achananiti myth, conveys. So, that worked really well for us to kind of, that helped encompass all these ideas. Because so finally it is about that, coming to giving birth and nurturing and caring and then, destroying. So, so somehow everything else fitted in within that. Yeah.
In Wayanad, Wayanad is Vayalnadu and also Vananadu. Vayanad is forest land, right? So it is a mosaic of this Vayal and Vanam. So what really struck me was the ginger part of the story, which is a very significant one. And I think, you've just mentioned about how in Sainath's, the whole thing about Pulpalli, right? I mean, Pulpalli, I think you show Pulpalli town. So I just wanted to bring in, how did you place that, and what the whole difference between the Adivasi way of farming as a practice vis-a-vis the settler way of ginger and which is still continuing, and I think that connection in Hassan is very important because that's the root even today, even now in Wayanad. So I just wanted understanding of that.
Yeah, so, I was from the beginning working with this thing of farmer suicides, and that was an important part of the film, and to bring it in a way that is sensitive, not sensitive, but not voyeuristic and not kind of, pushing it too much. So the ginger story was actually very important for me because it was something that is here and now, it's something that we were facing. And George's story was really interesting because he tried hard to make a living and, to survive and all that. And he'd gone to Bombay and the Gulf and all that. So somewhere through his story, we were visually able to show the kind of destruction without having to say so much. And, it was really nice that we were able to get that little bit with his wife who kind of, because George was not very communicative and wouldn't want to talk about it, but his wife kind of succinctly put across, what they were actually going through. And that whole scene on their veranda, which kind of happened organically. We were talking to the wife and his mother, George's mother, and then this farmer comes in and they talk about suicide and they even laugh about it. And often in places, people ask me, how come they're laughing about death? But when you can't do anything more, you only laugh, like we do now. And when you see all the tensions around, you say, what do you do? More that you just laugh. So, that was a very poignant moment in the film for us too, who were the crew and who were filming, is to see this happening. So when you, I think, immerse yourself in a subject and you're there all the time, there are many things just come up. It's like, even the last thing of the death, we just came across it. We were not intending to film somebody's death. And for me, it is a very powerful moment because here we are talking about the soil, the earth, and here you're showing death, and then you're showing that person being put back into the soil. So it's like completing that circle in a visual way. Our challenge was also to try and show things visually, cinematically, without having to say things or explain things.
Ginger, for me, happened at multiple levels, right? One is me as a paddy farmer who tried to grow paddy, and where we had bought the land from somebody who had planted ginger, and the whole process was a very difficult process. One was the high intensive chemical farming that was going on over there. And beyond that, what we also see day in and day out is how farmers lease the land, take land on lease. The moment it is for ginger, the first thing good that goes from the land are the trees. Because the tree that is used, the timber is used for buying the rhizome.
Even though it's a documentary movie, ಅಂದರೆ ಫ್ಯೂಚರ್ ಫಿಲ್ಮ್ಗಿರೋ ಅಂದರೆ ಒಂದು ಕಾವ್ಯಾತ್ಮಕ ಗುಣ ಇದೆ. ಅಂದರೆ ನೀವು ಕ್ಲೋಸ್ ಶಾರ್ಟ್ಸು ಅಥವಾ ಮಿಡ್ ಶಾರ್ಟ್ಸ್ ತೊಗೊಳ್ಳುವಾಗ ಅಥವಾ ಸಣ್ಣ ಈ ಥಿಂಗ್ಸ್ನ ಗ್ರಹಿಕೆ ಮಾಡುವಾಗ ಅದು ನೀವು ಇಂಟೆನ್ಷನಲ್ ಆಗಿ ಮಾಡಿದ ಅಥವಾ ಅದು ಹೇಗೆ, ಅಥವಾ ಅಲ್ಲ ನಾನು ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ಅಂದರೆ ವೆದರ್ ಇದೆ ಕೆಮಿಸ್ಟ್ರಿ ಬಿಟ್ವೀನ್ ಇದೆ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟರ್ ಆಫ್ ಫೋಟೋಗ್ರಫಿ ಆರ್ ಯುವರ್ ಸೆಲ್ಫ್ ಆ ಥರ. ಅಂದರೆ ತುಂಬ ಕಾವ್ಯಾತ್ಮಕ ಗುಣ ಇದೆ. ಅಂದರೆ ಡಾಕ್ಯುಮೆಂಟ್ರಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದರೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ನಾವು ಹಣ ಅಂತ ಕರೆದ್ರೆ ತಪ್ಪಾಗುತ್ತೇನೋ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ, ಅಥವಾ ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಟಿಸ್ಟಿಕ್ಸ್ ಅಥವಾ ಡೀಟೇಲ್ಸ್ಗಳು ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಹೋದಾಗ ಇಲ್ಲೇನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದರೆ ಒಂದು ನಮಗೆ ವಿ ವಿಲ್ ಗೆಟ್ ಇನ್ ಟು ದಿ ಸ್ಕ್ರೀನ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಅದು ಒಂದು ನೀವು ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಅದು ಸಾವು ಕೂಡ ನಗೋದು ಅದು ನಮಗೆ ತಲುಪುತ್ತೆ. ನಮಗೂ ಹಾಗೆ ಅನಿಸುತ್ತೆ, ಇದೇನಕ್ಕೆ ಇವ್ರು ನಗ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಅದನ್ನು ಕೊನೆ ಮೂಮೆಂಟ್ ಒಟ್ಟಾಗಿದೆ ಅಂದರೆ ನಾನು ಕೂಡ ಅಲ್ಲಿರ್ಬೋದು ಇತ್ತು, ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಮೂಮೆಂಟಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನು ಇರ್ಬೋದು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾನಲ್ಲ, ಅದು ತುಂಬ ಫೀಲ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಅದು ಅದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಏನಾದರೂ ಹೇಳಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯನಾ?
ಆ್ಯಕ್ಚುಲಿ ಅವರು ಸೋಮು ಅವರು ಫಿಲ್ಮ್ ಮಾಡುವಾಗ, ಈಗ ಒಂದು ಸೀನ್ ಫಿಲ್ಮ್ ಮಾಡುವಾಗ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಯಾವ ಥರ ಶಾರ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಫಿಲ್ಮ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಹೇಗೆ ಕ್ಲೋಸಪ್ಸಿಗೆ ಹೋಗಬೇಕು, ಯಾವ ಥರ ಲಾಂಗ್ ಶಾರ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಮಿಡ್ ಶಾರ್ಟ್ಸ್, ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ಅವ್ರದ್ದು ಮೊದಲೇ ಅವರು ಎಡಿಟ್ ಅವರ ತಲೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ನಡೀತಾ ಇತ್ತು. ಸೊ ಹಾಗೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಇತ್ತು ನಮಗೆ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕೆ. I met Jo Chechi right in the beginning. She was one of the few people. She has very strong beliefs and fights for it. So she was also involved right in the beginning. I mean, many years back, there was this whole issue of tourism and the effect of tourism in Tirunelli, and there was, kind of girls being led into whatever the other way, all those kind of things. And she fought against that, So she's fought against many things. And so we kept in touch, and as the film developed, I realized that, she represented the forest and the soul of the forest. And, that her... I mean, I think through her story, we not only understand what forest means to her, but we can feel it, in terms of textures, the way she moves and things like that. So she's a powerful character, and but her strong ideals also caused problems within the family. She was estranged from her daughter for a very long time, but they're now finally together.